Esther, co-curator of St Paul's Carnival's Black History Month, and I'm here joined with...
I'm Manu, and I work as an artist. I also work as an educator in outdoor spaces, and I also work within green companies and cultural companies, trying to find ways of diversifying what they do and diversifying the people that they reach out to.
I'm Olivia. I'm one of the new Black and Green ambassadors for Bristol. So working, similar to as Manu said, on the intersection between racial issues and environmental issues. And then I also work as a sustainable waste consultant.
Nice. And I did a little bit of research about you, and I saw that you did something for Lush. Could you tell me about what it was that you did?
Yes, so my first job after graduating was for Lush, the cosmetics company, the very smelly shop, in case you don't know. And I was looking at sourcing of aroma chemicals, so I was trying to make the fragrance ingredients in an ethical and environmentally friendly way. Trying and hopefully succeeding, but I don't know.
So Manu, I think that you do something with Green and Blacks as well, don't you? Were you part of the initiation of that? What was it that you did with Green and Blacks? I know you're connected.
I wasn't connected with it beginning. I got involved when I became a director of the Bristol Green Capital Partnership.
Okay.
And what that meant was that I was trying to find ways for community engagement to happen, especially within the Black and Asian communities. And the Black and Green Ambassador program had already been running, and they wanted to get some money to do it. Asked the National Lottery to open up their pockets and do the thing we put on the billboards. And so about 2 years ago, we started the process of trying to get that money, and ultimately this year they announced we had enough money to bring in people like Olivia and get the program going again. And so it's pretty exciting. We've got 3 years of funding, 9 ambassadors, and a whole program of stuff that we'll be doing.
Nice. And I guess this kind of leads on to my next question. How do you think we can create accessible sustainability in the BAME community?
Yeah, that's a
This is never going to be easy, Manu.
That's a tough question. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think one thing that's quite important to me in the work that I do is perspectives. It's actually realizing that different people have different ways of looking at the environment, different people have different ways of accessing the current ideas around sustainability and nature, and that's to do with our history. You know, my history is different from yours. Our history is possibly very different from somebody who's coming from a totally different cultural, racial, whatever background. And so the moment you start acknowledging those histories, you start finding pathways of how those people can be more engaged.
I think it's also about understanding what people are already doing and championing what's already happening. I think there's a perception that sustainability has to be a certain way, and also the word sustainability is kind of so warped and meaningless and who knows anymore. So I think it's also about realising what people are already doing in their day-to-day lives, or what their parents have been doing, or what their grandparents have been doing, that is already sustainable and just hasn't been kind of pegged with that word for whatever reason. So I think that's a big part of it as well, realising.
I know you're new to Bristol.
Yes, so I have not been to St Paul's Carnival because, I've been to this version of St Paul's Carnival, the kind of online, other bits and pieces. I'm from Reading, I've been to Reading Carnival a few times. I used to go to Notting Hill when I was a kid. We used to go on family weekend or family day. So it's a different type of carnival.
Yeah. I've been to Carnival in Bristol. I think one of the first ever times I came to Bristol was to go to Bristol Carnival. And the couple of years that I've been here where it hasn't happened have been pretty sad summers. You know, you've had to feel it. You feel that something is miss it.
Yeah. How do you think that Carnival interacts with sustainability at all, if in any way?
I wouldn't say it's a question that I thought about a lot until maybe the last 7-8 years. So I've always gone to Notting Hill Carnival, and I've always come to St Paul's Carnival. And one thing that you always see at the end of Carnival, like you always see at the end of festivals, like you always see at the end of a big outdoor gig, is the amount of plastic and aluminium rubbish littered everywhere. And it's weird, there's like a switch that turned on about 6-7 years ago where it stopped being a waste problem of just this stuff needs to be taken and put into bins and who knows what happens to it, to why is there so many plastic bottles? Yeah. You know, because the first thing you do when you turn up at Manu Manganidze Carnival is find somebody that's selling bottles of water, because you know you're going to need water, but you don't think about that.
Ruth Ramsey, she's our carnival costume maker, and she says that particularly with her pitchy patchy costume, I don't know if you know much about Jamaican tradition, but that was one of the most influential costumes they had back in the day. And then she said about with the rag costume, they would kind of make it out of old pieces of fabric that they found. This is like way back in the day. Are there materials out there that are actually better for the environment, or is it just a case of reusing to be better for the environment?
I would always go with reusing. I think there's always a cost, so to speak, with making something new. It's different for synthetic things like plastic that's oil derived, but then if you go natural, there's a different cost there, and so it's hard to pay off, hard to decide which one's best depending on what you're measuring. Most natural things you're involving a lot of carbon and a lot of water. So there's nothing perfect. I would say reusing what you've already got around. We've got plenty of stuff to choose from. I would say that's the way to go.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I think there's something kind of bigger about how our society consumes. I think we like stuff to be there and done, you know. So even if you're making stuff, you like to go to a place and just go, give me this thing and that thing and that thing, and I'll put them together into this thing. We have such a fast consumption, fast fashion idea of how to, how to express ourselves.
What would you recommend me? What things should I do every day to be a bit more sustainable? Fairly well, so.
I think, I don't know, I'm really a big fan of learning a particular skill. Learning a particular skill. If you learn how to make clothes, for example, or,
put that on the list.
And just be more conscious. I think really being conscious of what your options are when you're doing something, when you're traveling.
Yes.
Would it be more interesting and actually add a whole bunch of other benefits to your life if you walk to work twice a week?
We talk about sustainability a lot, and I'm thinking one of the things that I think of sustainability, I think of nature. And one of my questions that I thought would be good to ask you guys was, do you think people of colour access nature as much as they should?
Should? I don't know.
Should.
Don't know. Do you have a
inner city Bristol?
Yeah, it's as much as they can. Possibly not. My entire business model for working out that I needed to take young kids from the inner city out into nature was based on stats that said it's not happening.
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. Everything to do with 95% of the black population live in big urban areas. They earn less money, so, and that's just a statistical fact. And work longer hours, that's another fact. And then culturally as well, the connection to the natural environment, historically for different people, and this is not just about race, it's about class, it's about gender, it's about a whole bunch of other factors. Different people have a different historical connection to the land and the land in this country, right? And so that means the barriers to access, whether they're psychological, sociological, economic, can often be much bigger for people of colour. And then until very, very recently, I've spoken to older people who have been in the UK for 60, 70 years, people from Jamaica, India, Bangladesh, and until very recently they felt like they would be racially abused if they went somewhere. And I've had less than comfortable experiences in when I've been out in places. And so no one thing I think is a reason why the stats say what they say. But when you start putting those stats together, when you start putting those reasons together, you start realizing that there are barriers, and and what that means is that people don't. The numbers show it. People just don't. And the result, from my perspective, the result is we've seen during COVID. There's a health impact, physical health impact. I see it in the work that I do. There's a psychological health impact. There's a sociological health impact that I see as well in that people don't feel a sense of home, a sense of place, because their scope of vision within the country that they sometimes are born in is actually very, very limited to a small urban area. And so everything else is mythological. The Welsh hills are mythological. The Dorset coastline is mythological. It's not something that you connect to. And when you don't have that connection to those things in a physical sense, whether you are from a white working class background, whether you are from a Romani traveller background, whether you're a black person, doing his 12-hour shift at a rubbish job somewhere, or you're a lawyer or whatever, there's a lot of diversity within diversity. When you don't have that scope, then it's very difficult to call the place home.